Hi guys, welcome back to The Makeup Hunter. Thank you for joining me again, and if you are new here, welcome. I really do hope you'll stick around. So, in today's video, I'm going to be doing a whole heap of things. I am going to be doing a first impressions and a review of the new Beauty Bay Earthy Palette. This is the Mega palette. Beauty Bay recently bought out a core collection of 2 Mega palettes, 3 midi palettes and 3 mini palettes. I only picked up the Earthy palette because this was the colour story that I was so interested in, and I'm hoping in this video to also do 3 looks, 1 palette. I've never done one of those before. We're going to try and see how we get on. So, starting the video with no makeup on whatsoever. We're going to talk through a little bit about the palette itself, and then I will go into doing my first look, give you my first impressions, and then I'll probably do another 2 looks towards the end of the video. So I hope all that sounds interesting. Please do subscribe if you haven't already. It would mean the absolute world to me, and I would love to have you here to hang out with. Please give me a like if you enjoy this kind of content. If you want to see more from me, give me a like. It lets me know that I'm doing something right. Leave me a comment. I do love chatting to you guys in the comments section. And without further ado, let's get on with this. Okay, so as I explained in the introduction, Beauty Bay did come out with a range of palettes that they are calling their core collection. They came out with the Midnight series, which is blues and purples, the Earthy palette, which is the one I've got here, which is obviously earthy tones, browns and greens, and then they came out with the berries. They only did 2 palettes in the berries one. They didn't for some reason do one of the mega palettes. This one is a 42 pan palette. They only did the mega palettes in the Earthy and the Midnight, which I found a little bit strange. I do kind of want to pick up the Midnight palette and the berries palette, but the thing that stops me from getting those is the Midnight palette is like half blues and half purples, and I probably wouldn't touch the blue half, so that's why I haven't picked that one up. The berries palette is very deeply inspired by the new Romantic palette, which was a limited edition palette for Valentine's Day last year, I think, and I have that palette already. The Earthy palette was inspired by the Wilderness palette, which I also have, so there are some crossover shades in this, but I'm very into greens at the moment, and I wanted this as like a do everything palette. It's got like neutrals, greens, all that sort of thing. So this was £23. The midi palettes are £15, I think, and no, the midi palettes are £10, and the mini palettes are £6, I think. As I say, this one was £23. This is the actual palette itself, and this is the box that it came in. The delivery on this was absolutely shocking. Beauty Bay is a UK retailer. I am based in the UK, and this took 2 full weeks to get to me, which I thought was absolutely ridiculous. I know a lot of people were kicking off on their social medias about it, and they were giving different excuses, saying that they had moved to a new warehouse. Then somebody else got the reply to say that they couldn't get any drivers, so it was just a bit of a shocking, you know, delivery situation. Yet all of the YouTubers had their palettes straight away. So, you know, your average Joe like myself, we had to wait 2 weeks, which was a bit annoying. I didn't pay the next day shipping, I only got the standard, and I usually just get the standard, and it usually only takes a couple of days. But I think if I order from Beauty Bay again, I will do the next day delivery, because the wait in the 2 weeks was just a painful experience when I so desperately wanted to get my hands on the palette. Came packaged really well in a double layer of bubble wrap, and let's show you the palette as I've waffled on for so long. There is a big mirror in here which I'm gonna try not to blind you with, and this is what the Earthy palette looks like. I think this is so stunning. As I say, I am very into greens at the moment, especially this middle section of green tones, like the very grungy, murky kind of greens. The shimmer formula in the Beauty Bay palettes is chef's kiss. It's almost like a putty formula, and if you look close at the palette you can see there are slight differences in the finishes. So some of the metallics are more of a subtle shine, and then you've got the really pow glittery in your face ones, and the more in your face shimmers are the ones that have more of a creamy finish. So for instance, the dark shimmer here, that is more of like a traditional metallic formula, but then you've got this one here and this one, which are like the more super buttery like metallics, a very creamy texture. I have only swatched a couple of these shades. I've been sort of restraining myself because I knew I wanted to film this video. So it's obviously, it's a £42 palette, so I'm not going to swatch everything, but I will swatch a couple of the shades for you. So the ones that I think are crossovers from the Wilderness palette are definitely this shade Lime, Ray, this one, which is my puppy's name, so I automatically love that shade. I think Pine was in there, and there was some of these like reddy tones in that palette, so I haven't actually took them out and compared them side by side, but they have said on the Beauty Bay site that it is based on the Wilderness palette. The Wilderness palette was a limited edition, so if you had wanted that palette but couldn't get hold of it, then I would definitely recommend picking up this one. So let's swatch a couple of these shades. I'll do a few of the mattes and a few of the shimmers. So the shade that I have been dying to get into is this shade here, Pickle, which is a beautiful grungy olive green. Then we'll have a look at this bright green here called Trance, and these are super soft and pick up really well. And then we'll do this red shade down the bottom called Raw, and then I'll do one more matte. We'll do one of the pastels. We'll do this one here, which is the shade Fresh. That one is super soft, and like I say, they do pick up really lovely. So we've got the shade Pickle, Trance, trying to remember which ones I did, Raw, That's a good red. That's a good one. And my hands are super dry at the moment, so these swatches are going to look a little bit dry because my skin is super dry. And then this is the shade Fresh. That's a good one considering it's a pastel. So those are 4 of the mattes. And then let's swatch 4 of the shimmers. So let's swatch one of these more subtle ones. So I'm going to swatch this one here called Sage. Stunning. Let's swatch Penny, this nice gold one here. Because it's such a big palette, it is hard to get it in the frame. As I'm stained red, we'll do the red metallic called Heat. It's like a red orange. Oh, that one is stunning. And then we'll do this brown one down here, like this taupey colour, which is Fizz. That is so stunning. So, I mean, you can see how shiny those two are, and those are more of like a drier traditional metallic. So now I've got to remember what these were. So we've got I'll do these on the palm of my hand. So we've got Sage, Penny. Oh, that one's lovely. That has like a green flip to it. Then we've got the shade Heat, more of a subtle sheen. That one more of like a satin than a, you know, in your face metallic. And that one has some lovely like orange sparkles in it. And then the last one, Fizz, which I think is going to be, yeah, one of my favourites. So you can see what I mean about the difference. I mean the shine on those compared to these two. So that's all I'm going to do for swatches. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go off camera. I'm going to do my base makeup. I never do my eyes first. I just prefer to do my eyes like second. It's just the way I do my makeup. So I'm going to go do my face, and then we'll do a first impressions of the palette. We'll do a look, and I'll probably do that as a voiceover. And then I'll come back, give you my first impressions, and then I'll come back to do another 2 looks, which I will probably film on separate days. But yeah, I've not done one of these 3 looks on palettes before, so I'm trying to figure out the best way to do it. But let's get on with the first look. Okay folks, so I've got the rest of my makeup on, and I forgot to mention in the beginning of the video that when I purchased the palette, which I got it on launch day, Beauty Bay were running a promotion that with any purchase of one of the, I think it was anything from the By Beauty Bay brand, you got a free Beauty Bay brow soap. So this looks like the Anastasia Beverly Hills Brow Freeze, but it is a water activated brow soap. I've used it for the first time today, and I actually really like it. It was super easy to use. It doesn't feel crunchy or uncomfortable. I mean, I can feel that my brows are stuck down, and it also didn't remove any of the foundation around my brows. So really impressed with that one. And it wasn't something that I would have picked up if it wasn't free, so pleasantly surprised. For this look, I want to do the more pastel-y tones, I think. So I definitely want to use this shade, perhaps these here, and then maybe this shimmer or this one here. But I'm feeling like going a bit more pastel-y. So as I say, I'm going to speed through the look, but I'm also going to do a voiceover. So let's get into the first look with the By Beauty Bay Earthy Palette. Okay guys, I hadn't realised that my camera wasn't recording when I first put this shade into my crease. So I'm going into my crease on a nice fluffy brush with the shade Fresh, which is like a bluey green pastel. For a pastel shade, it had amazing pigment and it showed up straight away on my lid. As you can see here, I've got only eye primer down. I've just used a MAC paint pot, and it's really pigmented right off the bat, considering as well that this is a very fluffy brush. So now I am going to be picking up the shade Cobra, and I am trying a slightly different look for me. I wanted to do something where there was a lot more depth of colour in the inner part of my lid, whereas I usually keep the front part of my lid very bare and just put like a light shimmer there. But I wanted to play with some different shapes and different tones as this is such a fun palette. So the shade Cobra is sort of a muted blue green, and I did expect it to be a little bit more vibrant than it is showing up here, but that may be to do with the fact that I've got that very pastel-y shade Fresh down, and I'm also blending out with that shade Fresh as well. So I think the combination of those two shades mixed together is making the shade Cobra less vibrant. Now I'm going to work on deepening the outer corner, and I'm using the shade Ivy, which is a beautiful deep true green. But as you'll see here, in the pan, these two shades, Cobra and Ivy, look completely different. But I found that there wasn't much of a difference when they were actually on the eye. I mean, looking at this footage now, I can see that there is a slight difference. But I expected Ivy to be much richer and much deeper. And I have built it up quite a bit. But I think it might be to do with that shade Fresh that I put down first, that very pastel colour. Which is kind of like with Cobra, dulling down this shade a little bit. I mean, you can see that there is depth to it, but I just expected there to be a much sharper contrast between those two colours, you know, so I'd have like a much lighter, brighter green in the inner part, and then a really deep, like foresty green on the outer corner. But they kind of blended together to look very similar. Now I am going into the shade Cobra again, trying to, you know, to deepen up that shade and to get more of a contrast, but it didn't really seem to matter how much I built it up. I mean, it's not anything against the shadows. I think it's just, I think that pastel shade Fresh is so pigmented and pastel that it's just kind of muting everything down. I'm now going in with the shimmer shade Frost. I haven't put any glitter glue down or anything, just going on to
the top of the other shadows, using my finger, no setting spray, nothing like that. And this is a stunning shade. There was absolutely no fallout. It went on really beautifully, really pigmented, and I want that sparkle to be a bit more dispersed, so I'm sort of taking it up the lid as well. I'm now going to use the shade Peachy to sort of do a bit of a spotlight in the very centre of my lid, and it just adds a little bit of like a pastel brightness to the look. And you know, it's quite subtle, but it did brighten things up a bit. I couldn't decide what I wanted to do with my inner corner, but I did decide to just take the shade Peachy, and I'm kind of wrapping it round and slightly under onto my lower lash line. This is a really beautiful shade, especially to use on the inner corner. It just adds a little bit of interest there. There are quite a few light, bright shades to use on the inner corner in this palette, but I really wasn't sure what to go for, and I thought I'd stick to this like bluey, greeny, pastel kind of vibe. I was thinking of putting a really bright green on the lower lash line, but I decided to stick with the same tones, so I'm putting the shade Cobra on my lower lash line, and then I go over the top of it with the shade Peachy, which is on my inner corner and centre of the lid. As you can see, there's no fallout from the shimmers or the mattes. Everything blended together really beautifully, and I'm kind of obsessed with how this look turned out. I want to do this sort of technique again where I put more of a vibrant colour on the inner part of my lid, but try it with something a bit more vibrant than this turned out. And that's my look complete. So this is the finished look with mascara and some liner in my waterline. I've just used the Morphe Falling for Green colour pencil, and that's it.
Okay guys, so that's my first look using the by Beauty Bay Earthy Palette. So I'll just go through my sort of condensed first impressions. So I used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shades from the palette. So starting off with the shade Fresh, then I went into the shade Cobra, then I went into the shade Ivy, and then all over my lid I've got the shade Frost, and then as like a spotlight and in my inner corner I've got the shade Peachy. So no fallout whatsoever. I thought I'd got some fallout, but it was just like some fibres from my brush. There was not one speck of fallout from the shadows. They're super pigmented, really easy to blend. I didn't have any problems blending whatsoever. I tried something a little bit different for me, like a different kind of look. The only thing I will say is that I found the shades Cobra, which I've got on my inner front part of my lid, and then Ivy on the outer corner. I found there wasn't much differentiation between the two colours. Now it may be because I put the very pastel shade Fresh down, which has got more of a blue base to it, and it might be that that's dulling down a little bit the colours. For instance, Ivy is more of a true green, whereas Cobra is more of a blue green. So I mean, you can see that they are slightly different tones, but I expected Ivy to be way more dark and punchy. But I think it's probably got to do with the fact that I put fresh down in my crease first. So really, really impressed so far. I absolutely love this look. I feel really fierce in this look. So I will be coming at you now with another 2 looks, where I'm going to be, the next look that I'm going to do is going to be dipping more into this middle section of the more like grungy olive tones, and then the final look will be with these more neutral warm tones. So let's get into the next 2 looks, and then I'll wrap up all my final thoughts at the end.
Okay, for this look I wanted to stick to this bottom row of the palette and do something a little bit more warm toned. I was actually going out for the day and was planning on wearing a navy and white polka dot top, so I wanted something that would go with that. So this first shade that I'm just applying into my crease is the shade Quicksand, and it's a lovely yellow toned tan colour. It's really beautiful, blended really well, super pigmented for a transition shade, and I absolutely love this shade. The next shade that I'm going in with is the shade Squash, which is just a step up from the shade Quicksand, much warmer and deeper, and again it's a very similar shade, just a bit deeper than the shade Quicksand, and I absolutely love it. It's such a stunning shade and one of my favourite eyeshadow colours to wear. So I'm just building this up a bit and sort of blowing it out into my crease, and I'm taking it into sort of a slightly winged out shape. I'm working in completely natural light in this footage, so the light will keep changing. I was being blinded, so had to pull the curtain closed a little bit, so the light will keep changing, but I actually love the way the natural light looks, much better than when I'm using my ring light. So now to add a little bit of green into this look, which originally I wasn't planning on doing, but I just couldn't help it. I'm taking the shade Eucalyptus, which is a beautiful yellowy green, and I'm sort of just stamping this on where I want it to begin with, as I was worried about this not blending in with the orangey tones. I was worried it would look a little bit muddy, but once I started blending it and once it started mixing in with that warm toned orange, I realised how well they actually complemented each other, and I do want this to look quite grungy and blown out, so it didn't go muddy, but it just blended together really nicely. I'm also taking that shade Eucalyptus onto my lower lash line and just blending it with a short squat pencil brush. And then for my lid shade, I'm using the shade Legend, which is a beautiful gold, which has a lot of multicoloured flecks. You can see in the sunlight, you could see red and green and all sorts, and as you can see I'm struggling with the lighting, but yeah, I'm just putting that on my lid with my finger, not using any glitter primer or setting spray or anything like that. These shimmers are incredibly pigmented right out the gate. You don't really need to do anything with them, but I do find that applying with a finger is the absolute best method. I'm just blending away some of the glitter particles that have sort of transferred up, and now I am going into the shade Satellite, which is a beautiful light sage green, and I tried applying this with a little fluffy pencil brush, but as you can see here, it just didn't really work. So what I did was take it on my little finger, apply it where I wanted it, and then I went over it with the brush to just sort of polish the pearls in the shadow and sort of spread it out a little bit. And once I'd got that sort of shade sort of smushed into the brush, I suppose is the best way to say it, it did actually apply okay to my inner corner and bottom lash line. But for the, you know, the more intense colour payoff on my lid, it is definitely better with a finger, and you can see how beautifully this shade Satellite blends in. It just adds a little bit of iciness to the inner corner, and this is my finished look. Okay, and for my third and final look, I'm going to be using the centre section of the palette, and I didn't really have a look in mind, I just went where the mood took me with the palette. So to begin with, I am using the shade Fern, which I am just taking on a big fluffy brush and just blending that into my crease. This is a lovely light but bright green, definitely a true green. It's so pretty, and all of these matte shadows just blend so easily. I'm just doing the same on the other eye, and the foundation that I was using in this look is just the Glossier Skin Tint. I was worried about doing something quite full on the eyes with a very like natural skin day, but it actually worked out quite well. I'm quite loving my makeup in this finished look. So the next shade that I'm going in with is the one right next to that one in the shade Leafy, which is a much more intensely pigmented grass green shade, and I'm just using this small little packing brush to create sort of like a winged shape. What I want is that almost graphic liner effect, but with shadow, like a smoky shadow. I don't know if that makes any sense, but you can see the kind of shape that I'm trying to achieve here with the shadow. And these shades just blended in so well together. It's just, this palette is just easy. It's such a user-friendly palette. It doesn't give it, in all three of these looks, it's not given me one bit of trouble. I've used all different brushes, all different techniques, and I've had a really great experience every time. And you can see just how easily that shade is building up but then blending out as well. It's stunning. And I'm just continuing to like blend that line that I've created, as I want the depth to be on that very outer angle, but I don't want it to be like super precise. So now I'm going in with the shade Eucalyptus on this small little tapered blending brush to create a little bit more depth on that very outer edge, repeating the same method as I did with the shade Leafy, but just adding that extra bit of depth with eucalyptus. This is the second time that I've used the shade eucalyptus. I absolutely love it. For some reason I'm really drawn to it. I've also taken that shade eucalyptus on the lower lash line, but just on the outer edge, and I'm using the same brush that I applied it on my upper lid to my lower lash line. I don't want anything too precise down there. I like my lower lash line to be quite messy and blown out. And I just keep switching between my brushes, like from the one that I used previously, to help achieve that really nice blend. And then what I'm doing to help add the depth to the outer edge is I'm taking, like, from the lower lash line up to the shape that I've created, so sort of extending the line of my lower lash line upwards just to help me get that blend and that shape. Now I'm using this beautiful bright green called Apple, and I'm just using this on the inner half of my lower lash line and blending it in with the shade eucalyptus just to add a little bit of brightness there. This is a gorgeous colour. I can't wait to use it you know, more intensely on the upper lid. It was a beautiful, like I say, a beautiful bright apple green. Now I am using the shade Folklore on my lid, again just using that on my finger, no glitter glue or anything like that down first. And this is a gorgeous green shade. This is kind of like the metallic version of the shade Eucalyptus. It's a gorgeous green with lots of deeper green and gold reflex in it. Then just to add a little bit of interest to the inner corner, I'm using the shade Penny, which is a gorgeous bright gold, sort of like a lime green gold when it's actually on the eye, and you can see how well it is blending in with that other metallic shade. They just blend together beautifully. And then I'm also taking a little of that shade on my lower lash line. I'd got a bit of accidental transfer, so I thought I'd just turn it into part of the look. And then I'm just taking a little bit of this amazing bright inner corner shade Carver, and I'm applying that to my inner corner with my little finger, and then I'm also applying it onto my brow bone. This one did actually apply okay with a brush, which I didn't think these applied great with a brush, but this one worked absolutely fine. And that is my finished look with mascara and liner and everything on. I've just got MAC Duck, which is a brown pencil liner, in my waterline, and that's it. That's my finished look.
Okay, so I finally finished my 3 looks using the by Beauty Bay Earthy Palette. I've really enjoyed using this palette. There's so many choices, there's so many different routes that you could go with this palette. With each look I've tried to stick to a different 2 rows of the palette. I did plan on doing sort of a more warm toned, red toned look, but I couldn't resist going green even when I planned not to. So I think this is a stunning palette. The matte formula is absolutely out of this world. It is so easy to blend, so easy to work with. There is barely any fallout. There is a little bit of kick up in the pan on some of the shades, not all of the ones that I've used. But some of them do have a bit more kick up than others, but it doesn't sort of transfer onto the face, and as long as the shades are pigmented and blendable, and you know, they don't put down and then don't budge, then I'm not too bothered about a little bit of mess in my palette. But as you can see, it still looks pretty spectacular. The shimmers are just the Beauty Bay formula that I am used to. They apply absolutely amazing with a finger, not particularly great with a brush, although with this look, the shimmer that is on my brow bone and underneath my lower lash line, I did use a brush on both of those shades. I didn't use a glitter glue at any time. I didn't wet my brush or wet the shadows or anything like that. Just a finger into the pan and then straight onto my lid, and it works absolutely beautiful. Each shade is, you know, stands apart from the rest in the palette. I love that you've got those very minty, bluey pastel greens, then you've got the more grungy earthy tone greens, and then you've got that row of like warm browns with some like more warm toned earthy greens sprinkled in. But yeah, absolutely love this palette, and for £23 for 42 shades, you honestly can't go wrong. After using the Earthy palette for these 3 different looks and for having such a wonderful experience, I think I am probably going to pick up the Midnight palette, the other mega palette. Whilst blue isn't my favourite eyeshadow colour to use, I just love this formula, and if I am going to use a blue, it would probably be the Beauty Bay formula, because of the lack of fallout and the easy blendability. Blues are a little bit hard to work with, but I have a feeling that in the Beauty Bay formula they're going to be amazing. So as you can tell, I don't think I need to elaborate too much. This palette's amazing. I'm so pleased that I decided to get it. Really pleased with my purchase. Think I'm going to get a lot of use out of this palette. It's a great all-rounder. You've got your colourful and your neutrals. You can go super vibrant and bold, or you can go for something more subtle. The shimmers that are in this palette are the ideal one and done formula, you know, just slick over the across your lid, blend the edges out, and you're done for a look. You can also do the same with the mattes, so you don't have to go super bold or super vibrant. You can do something sort of everyday or office appropriate. So yeah, this is amazing. So that brings me to the end of this review and 3 looks 1 palette. As it was my first 3 looks 1 palette, I really do hope you enjoyed it. It did take me about a week to do because of having to allow for the flare that I'm in and, you know, that sort of thing. But I did enjoy sort of focusing on 1 palette for 3 looks. It really got me to know the palette, and I think I probably would like to do more of these in the future with other palettes. So thank you so much for watching, guys. I really do appreciate the fact that you've spent some time hanging out with me today. If you've enjoyed this video, please do leave me a thumbs up and leave me a comment. Subscribe if you want to see more from me. I do lots of beauty content, bit of plus size fashion content sprinkled in when my body will allow it, and yeah, just lots of makeup and joy of makeup here on this channel. So thanks for watching, guys. Look after yourself, look after each other, make sure that you do something nice for yourself today, no matter what it may look like, and I'll see you in my next video. Thanks, guys. Bye.